Imagine if I challenged you to a bicycle race, and I showed up on my trusty Schwinn single-speed bicycle. You showed up on your 10-speed bicycle. All else being equal, you're going to kill me. You're going to win. At Bose, I liken our adoption of Office 365 to giving each and every one of our employees a 10-speed bicycle. Now, all of our employees don't use all 10 speeds. Some use one. Some use many. But the story doesn't end there. Over the past 3 years, since we've adopted Office 365, Microsoft has added an additional 11 speeds to that 10-speed bicycle, and now we have a 21-speed bicycle. And again, we're working on adoption. We have a few people who just use email. We have a few people who are using 15, 18 speeds of that 21-speed bicycle. But that's the value proposition that we've received from Microsoft by adopting Office 365. My name is Brian Marr. I'm the Manager of Integration Services at Bose. I'm on the DevOps side of the house. I have several of my colleagues here from infrastructure and operations, and they were really the ones who drove this whole transformation. I can't take credit for that. I was just the SharePoint guy who rode on their coattails as they adopted and brought Office 365 to Bose. I'm grateful for that, and thank you for all that hard work. It was quite a journey. I'm going to tell you about why we made the decision. And by the way, I guess I drew the short straw because these guys are listening to me in the audience, and I have to get up here and present to you. But thank you very much for that. So, little plug for Bose Corporation. The music you heard today here was from one of our products, a Bose Sound Touch. It's one of our wireless speaker lines. It's the biggest Bose product I could fit in my luggage. So I wish I could bring some of our more sophisticated or products that are more appropriate for a room this size. But again, I had to do with that. But I think it sounded pretty good, don't you all? So thank you. Bose Corporation, founded in 1964 by Dr. Amar Bose, our founder and beloved by most employees. Amar was a professor at MIT, and before his death, he gave the majority shares of Bose to MIT. So we're a privately held company owned complete by MIT, which gives us some interesting collaboration initiatives between the MIT engineering staff and Bose. So that's a legacy that will live on for a long time to come. Global headquarters in Framingham, Massachusetts. You can see a little picture of our R&D building, and behind that, our corporate center in the picture there. We have subsidiaries and production facilities all over the world, as well as stores. And again, we're privately held, and 100% of our net profits are reinvested into growth and development. A little story about our timeline, a history of creating and redefining markets. And we started in the early 60s with something called the 901 speaker. And as I was walking on the floor at the expo, somebody noticed that I worked for Bose, and they came up to me and said, you know, my 35-year-old 901s don't sound as good as when I bought them. And I said, well, we could actually repair them for you if you would like. He said, we have that facility. But think about it. How many products, electronics products, do you have that are still in use and still actually work 35 years after you bought them? Probably not. And that's a testament to the engineering that we put into our products. In the early 80s, Dr. Bose was meeting with the president of MIT, and he was telling the president of MIT that if he could put a sound system in a car, he could make a very unique experience for the driver because the car was a defined space. His problem was when he sold speakers to people, they would put them anywhere in their house, and he couldn't control how the actual sound happened. In a car, he could control that if he designed the system into it. Just so happened, during that conversation, the president of MIT called the president or the CEO of General Motors and pitched the idea, and that spun off a premium car audio marketplace for us, which is being very successful for us today from that conversation. We came out later on with the Wave music system, our Quiet Comfort headphones, which many of you hopefully used when you were coming here on the plane. I suggest you look into a pair if you don't have them. I had mine on when there are 3 kids sitting in back of me screaming the whole way from Boston to Chicago, and I was quite content. The only thing they didn't do was prevent the kids from kicking the back of my seat the whole time I was there. If we could engineer something like that, then that would be truly amazing. Our AccuMask products came next, followed by our lifestyle systems for home theater, our very popular Wave music system, which is we still sell that today, and most of these products we still sell today in some derivative. Our L1 for musicians, and the gentleman in the back actually commented to me about 10 minutes ago how much he loves his L1, and the band he plays in uses it all the time, and they're as thrilled with the product. It's part of our professional systems business. We collaborated with Apple to get the Sound Dock going in early 2000s, and that was a very successful product as well for us. We purchased a company called Electroforce Systems, which is a medical device testing company that has some synergies with Bose, and we thought it would be a good fit for what we do in our emerging markets business. Came out with a new version of our noise-canceling headphones, better. We have a product that goes into tractor-trailer truck cabs called the Bose Ride, where our research in noise cancellation was parlayed into a product that allows the cancellation of bumps in a truck cab, which reduces the strain on the truck driver's back and allows them to feel refreshed after they've worked. That's one of our emerging market products, and we're working with several companies to have them as an option on seats in trucks. We came out with our Video Wave system, which included a surround sound system built right into the TV, 2010. Our sports in-ear earbuds, our popular Bluetooth speaker line, SoundLink Mini, the SoundTouch product line, which is a wireless speaker, which is what you see here, where you can have them scattered throughout your house and control them with your iPhone or your Android phone and play whatever music from music services over your home internet. It's a pretty cool product. It sounds pretty good too, as you can see. And we came out a couple years ago with in-ear noise canceling headphones, and those are the ones that I use on the plane. And they're quite amazing. If you ever have an opportunity to try them, I suggest you do. They can cancel out just about any noise that you can think of, whether you're traveling in a plane, you're trying to get work done, or you're sitting down in the coffee area next to the expo floor and you're trying to get a little quiet time. I pop those things in, and I can go into my own little role and get a lot of work done. Enough about Bose. Let's talk about Office 365. That's why you're all here, right? In 2008, and this was long before I joined the company, and some of my colleagues in infrastructure and operations were here for all this, so they would be able to maybe answer your questions more than I can. But we'll just go through a little history. In 2008, Bose upgraded its messaging infrastructure to Exchange 2007. And in 2011, they initiated a POC to address 4 challenges. Small mailbox sizes forced the use of PST files, which probably drove our legal teams crazy. Regional exchange servers and lack of disaster recovery require a lot of local exchange expertise. Lack of effective e-discovery for searching and hold capabilities. And the exchange server hardware was 4 years old. So we had to do something. It was clear. The result of that POC was a recommendation to host on-premise Exchange 2010 on a VM to address those 4 challenges. At the same time, we were planning to migrate to SharePoint 2010, kind of a perfect storm for us. That's when Microsoft came to us and said, hey, wait a minute, before you guys go that route, you got to look at one thing, and it was Office 365. So we took a step back, and the folks at I&O led the charge. Our CIO was very supportive and of moving our workloads to the cloud, and we saw this as an opportunity where we could make some change and implement some new features and realize a vision of anywhere, any device, any time that we were striving to achieve. So we had to evaluate the product, see if it would fit for us, see if we could actually consume it and run our business on it. So in 2012, we did a POC to evaluate the feasibility of implementing Office 365 at Bose. We actually implemented Office 365. We moved 100 users to Office 365. They worked in the environment for a couple months, and we moved them all back so we could do our negotiating with Microsoft without having that get in the way. We tried to identify key VARs to help us with the pilot, but back then we were one of the first customers and there weren't many VARs around. We identified a pilot group to perform Office 365 testing evaluation. Again, that was about 100 people. We had assessed the security risks, assess where we were storing content, and assess where we were storing SharePoint data in the cloud and any ramifications from that. Review all legal considerations. If we had customer data that was stored, European customer data that was stored in a Chicago data center for Microsoft, we had to consider all those things. We had to assess the viability of SharePoint Online. Could we move from SharePoint 2007 to SharePoint 2010 online and not lose functionality? We knew that there were some things that would not work in the online environment. We have to assess whether or not they were enough to prevent us from making this decision. We had to look at SharePoint migration tools and processes, how we were going to move. At that time, we had 5,000 SharePoint sites, how we're going to move them to the cloud. We had to compare Link Online, presence online with other competitors, assess the WAN bandwidth to make sure that we had the infrastructure in place to support our workforce, which I believe at that time was between 9,000 and 10,000 people. And we got through that. And I believe it took about 3 months. And at the end, we decided we were going to go to Office 365, and we had to plan the implementation and go. So we had a project plan, many project managers. There were probably 20 or 30 people working on this project to make it happen. We collaborated with Microsoft. We leveraged their cloud services, Cloud Vantage services at the time, to help us get there and to ensure we had a successful migration. Our executive team was behind us. That was key. And we had to deliver a lot of things in a short period of time. I think our initial estimate was we were going to do this in a year. And our CIO said, that's good, make it 6 months. And that was our target. And we met that target. So we had to stand up Exchange hybrid ADFS proxy servers in a fault-tolerant configuration. Migrate Exchange public folders and calendars to SharePoint Online. Modify our user admin tools. We had to upgrade or replace PCs which did not meet the minimum Office 2010 requirements at the time. Now, a lot of those were probably, it was just an acceleration of a hardware refresh. They probably would have happened within the next 2 years or so. So it wasn't like we had to go buy new PCs for everybody. But we had to make sure that happened and people had the new PCs to take advantage of the service. We had to test Office 365 or Office 2010 with all of our other applications to make sure we had compatibility. Deploy Office 2010 to all Link users. And a big thing was communicating. We have met and met and met with our users time after time again in various different forms, and still they came back and said, I never heard about what you were doing. So we communicated, we had town halls, we tried to over-communicate, but really a key thing of what our takeaway was, you can't communicate this enough. And you can't underestimate the impact on the business when you drive this much change. Migrated 9,000 Exchange mailboxes and Outlook PST files to Office 365. I believe we used the services of Microsoft Cloud Vantage and their migration factory in India to migrate them over a period of time. All scheduled, all communicated, all orchestrated by project managers, by application analysts. We had to implement single sign-on, and we got thrown a curveball in the middle of this. In the middle of the project, we were told that we had to also implement multi-factor authentication because we were moving information to SharePoint Online that required us to achieve a higher level of authentication and authorization. So we quickly did a proof of concept. At the time, we went with a product called Phone Factor, and we moved off that since. But we did that within a very short period of time to make sure we could move all of our workloads for SharePoint to the cloud. We migrated over 3,000 SharePoint sites and content to Office 365. Started with about 5,000 in SharePoint 2007. What we did was we worked with each one of the businesses, gave them a listing of all their SharePoint sites, and required that they fill out a SharePoint info path form to request migration of their sites. So just by doing that, just by requiring that they spend 10 minutes for each site they wanted to migrate, we reduced the number of sites we had to migrate by 2,000. There are people who had SharePoint sites that weren't around anymore. People who had SharePoint sites who just didn't want to take the time to take 10 minutes to request our service to migrate them. So I recommend that everybody implement something like that. Do not do we considered doing the front loader lift and dump, which is a very bad move, and we actually cleaned up a lot. We implemented a governance plan, and we're trying to keep control over our SharePoint sites. To some degree, we're doing pretty well with that, but consider that along the way. Resources, the team, dedicated for probably almost a year doing this end-to-end with various levels of support, included several project managers. We had project managers at Microsoft. We had project managers at Bose. We had managers on the network team, managers on the implementation team, all working together to make sure this thing was done and met our expectations of the investment that Bose was making. Exchange administrators, Windows servers admins, desktop and endpoint architects. The list goes on. There was a large team. Network guys were involved heavily. Application regression and QA analysts. Information security was at all the meetings. We had SharePoint administrators managing the migration. Desktop and endpoint support analysts. Business change management. Huge piece of what we were doing. Communicate, communicate, communicate. We thought we did it enough. Again, we didn't do it enough. And that's a very difficult part of this process, or part of any business change process, to make sure that you've communicated well. Quite frankly, I don't know what we could have done more, but if we did it again, we'd probably have to find a better way to get our message out there. And we enlisted the, as I said, Cloud Vantage services from Microsoft to help design the solution, help with the mailbox migration factory and training. To be honest, the service was new. A lot of the resources we got were not too skilled in Office 365. 3-4 years ago, I don't think you would see, 100 Office 365 booths on a floor at an event like this. There might be one with 2 people around it, and that's what we found when we came. So we learned the hard way, but we persevered, and we got there. The timeline, we did a lot of setup, infrastructure testing, followed by our implementing Office 2010 link, did our mailbox migrations, did our SharePoint migrations, simultaneously did our PC replacements. So we really hit that target in about 6 months, and then we followed up with some additional SharePoint migrations. But as of the January timeframe, the whole business was all running on Office 365. Reflection. Overall success. I think that my colleagues here at Bose and the folks in the business will tell you that they're pleased with the service. They're pleased with the additional gears that we've added. They're pleased with Link. They're pleased with OneDrive. They're pleased with Anywhere, Any Device. And we realized the Anywhere, Any Device, Anytime vision. We made our users more productive. We gave them back, even if it was 10, 15 minutes a day. That's time they could be more productive, maybe time they could spend with their families, maybe time they could go to a baseball game for their sons. It gave them some more time to do some of the things that they wanted to do or we wanted them to do. Again, there were 9,500 mailbox migrations, 3,000 SharePoint sites into 60 site collections. All heavy lifting and hard work by a diligent team of people at Bose. Training, we offered training to 5,000 end users and 50 power users. It's very important for us. We have a very small SharePoint support organization. I think we basically have 2 people. And what we do is we run train the trainer sessions monthly. Those sessions they're 4-hour sessions. We run them for the business, and we train specific people in the business to manage and develop their own SharePoint sites. We don't have the bandwidth to do that for them. So that happens monthly. People sign up. Those classes are always full. But we use the theory where because of our resources, we give them a blank sheet. We provision a SharePoint site for them. And it's up to the businesses to paint the picture on it, do with it what they want. Some businesses are very, very astute at developing very complex workflows and some great-looking SharePoint sites. Others are learning. they're trying. We try to help as much as they can. We offer the training, and it seems to work out well for us. And again, we had to install Office and Link on 8,500 PCs globally. I think Link was the biggest transformation, the biggest impact when we gave people Link and they started screen sharing, and they started doing video conferences. They started having instant message conversations. That was very powerful. And I think it was a huge productivity win. And that was really the draw that got people to say, yeah, this is something that we want to use and we want to get better at. Lessons learned. What went wrong? What could we do better? Again, I can't state it enough. The impact on the business was underestimated. You know, we have some people in our business, if you move an option, I think one was a couple weeks ago where Microsoft in Office 365 implemented some people call it the waffle, some people call it tic-tac-toe. It's in the upper left-hand corner, and it's the app launcher. They took it off the main nav bar, and they put a little thing that looks like a little waffle on the upper left-hand corner. And really, we didn't communicate that well. And it caused a little disruption in the business. So we have to get ahead of that and continue to communicate the changes that Microsoft is introducing, so that our business can consume the benefits that Microsoft is delivering. And we're taking a different tact here by going to Office 365. We're trusting that Microsoft is doing the testing. Traditionally, Bose is a large SAP shop for our back-end systems. And every time we got some new software, the first thing we did, we opened it up and we installed it on our sandbox machine. And if we liked it, we installed it in our dev machine. If we liked it, we installed it in our QA machine before we promoted it to production. All of that work, all that testing, all that upgrade, all the things we had to do for those applications. In Office 365, we don't do any of that. We just have to be vigilant about working with Microsoft very closely to understand what they plan to deliver in the future and trying to find a way to communicate that to our users so they can take advantage of the service. Again, end user training. We offered it. People don't come. You know, the business has their day jobs. Their day job is not to consume technology, learn how to do new things. Their business is to sell these things. Their business is to design and develop new products for us. Their business is logistics. So us, IT, pushing these technological changes on them at a very, very rapid pace was disruptive to them. I think they've said stop more than once, but you know what? We're not stopping. We continue to drive change. It's the only way we're going to survive. It's the only way we're going to transform our business and allow our folks to be as productive as possible. Early adoption came with inadequate documentation, training, and expertise. We learned a lot along the way. Trial and error. I think Microsoft learned a lot from us as well. And we were quite frank with our feedback. And they were very responsive to it. So I got to give them that. But anytime you're an early adopter of these application services, you have to be prepared for, what will go wrong. But all in all, I think that they delivered what they said they would. And what really amazed me was the value they delivered continually over the last 2 or 3 years. Another thing, the backup strategy was not fully understood. And we didn't explain that well to our users. So in Office 365, we can't call up and say, hey, can you restore that file? I lost it. You have to understand that in Office 365, you're using a combination of the recycle bins at the site collection level, recycle bins at the site level, and versioning within SharePoint Online libraries and directory, libraries and lists to maintain the validity of your application. Restoring a site collection with 2,000 or with several hundred sites is not an option because you'll lose a lot of data. So we really needed to hammer that home with our users and our IT folks that this is the way we have to do business now. And it took a while to get. It took a while for me to understand the way to organize my work and organize my SharePoint sites such that they were protected. They are backed up, they are protected. Believe me, you just have to know how to leverage the tools Microsoft is giving you to make sure that you're not, you have the data protection that you expect. It's just a different paradigm. So what happened after that? We got our 10-speed bicycle. Everyone's happy. We're drinking champagne. But again, some users are riding that single-speed bike. They're using mail. They don't want to touch Link because they don't know what that's all about. OneDrive is something foreign to them. It used to be SkyDrive. Now it's OneDrive. What is it tomorrow? We don't know. And we'll probably be going through that with the Link and the Skype for Business. That'll also cause confusion, even though we'll communicate and communicate. But we'll drive through that. But Microsoft, since we've implemented the service, has been adding value, adding new services while we were riding the bike. 11th gear, we implemented Microsoft Dynamics CRM for our professional systems business. That's a business that makes those L1 speakers for musicians, and they do they do sound systems at places like Universal Studios and the Taj Mahal and major athletic arenas. They use it for lead tracking. So by implementing Office 365 and Microsoft Dynamics together, we leverage the whole single sign-on capabilities without doing anything. We just lit up Microsoft Dynamics CRM. This was the hard part. We developed a real-time integration with our on-prem SAP system so that we were pushing product, price, and sales data from SAP into the cloud real-time as it changed. That still hasn't, that still is not an easy thing to do, and it takes a lot of technical expertise from SAP resources as well as integration resources and Microsoft Dynamics API calls. But once we had it working, we really haven't touched it in 2 years, and it's been pretty successful. And again, early adoption of that product, we partnered with a company to help us out, but early adoption of that product came with some angst and some heartburn. And again, it's currently used for leads tracking by our professional systems division in the US, in Europe, and APAC. What came next? SharePoint Online upgrade. Well, it just so happened that 1 month after we moved everything to Office 365 and SharePoint 2010, Microsoft announced and implemented SharePoint 2013. So I had to go back to my business and say, you know, when I told you we were done, we're not done yet. We're moving again. So I came to Bose about 4 years ago, and at that time we were moving from SharePoint 2003 to 2007. I helped complete that move. We then very quickly moved from 2007 to 2010 in Office 365, and as soon as we got there, I had to go knocking on their door and say, we're moving again. But this is the last move. We're not migrating anymore. Fortunately, we completed the migration to SharePoint 2010 in June of 2013. SharePoint 2013 was available in July, a month later, and we were given about 3 months by Microsoft to move all of our SharePoint sites. Fortunately, they made it quite easy. They had previews. We were able to light up SharePoint sites and show users exactly what it would look like. And basically moving from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013 in Office 365 could be done at the site collection level, and basically could be done overnight. So we tested it for about a month, made sure everything was rendering correctly and working well. And we spent about 3 months upgrading, at that time, 3,500 SharePoint sites to SharePoint Online 2013. And I promised them I wasn't going to do it again. No more SharePoint upgrades. Microsoft promised me no more SharePoint upgrades. They will continue to add services every quarter, and we won't have to go through the upgrade pain that we had in the past. So I'm going to hold them to that, and let's see how far I get with that one. Next up, Office 2013 and Lync 2013. We were on 2010. We had to upgrade everyone to 2013. We had mandates by Microsoft. We had to do it by a certain date. We had to kick off another project to do that. We made Office 2013 and Lync 2013 available to early adopters in September of 2013. So, you know, that's pretty quick. We're implementing Office 2013 in 2013. Who would have thought? In the past, it would probably be 2 or 3 years before we would implement a product. We force pushed to all remaining users in April of 2014. And that was in order for us to maintain the viability of the service. And that came with Office Online, Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, all applications that our users benefit from and use on a daily basis. Next up, OneDrive for Business. Used to be SkyDrive, now it's OneDrive for Business. They increased the storage to 1 terabyte. Didn't fix the sync issues, but they increased the storage to 1 terabyte. I had dinner with the engineering team last night. They told me that's going to be fixed in the next several months, so we're going to try to hold them to that as well. We've seen slow adoption. We're starting to see some progress. People are getting some confidence in it. I like to explain it to people that it is like a suitcase in a file cabinet. So your sync directory should be your suitcase that you want to carry around with you. You should use the rest of the storage in SharePoint Online, that 1 terabyte, as a file cabinet to store documents that you don't necessarily use that often. And you're going to run into a lot less trouble then. People we're trying to store everything in their My Documents on their SharePoint site, which tried to sync to their device, which caused problems. So I think when I explain it to people like that, they kind of get it, and they start using the service as it was intended, and not to have everything sync all the time. Because really, who needs it? There's files that I have that I might reference once a year. I don't need that synced all the time. And we're currently offering on-site training to drive adoption. We continue to do that. That's something that we will do more and more of to increase the productivity of the offering. And we hope to retire on-prem user storage by 2016 and everything in the cloud. Is that right? I know, guys? All right. Next, Project Online. You know, Microsoft lights up these services in Office 365. My phone rings off the hook from business users saying, I just read that Microsoft introduced a new service. We're at Office 365. When can I have it? It just came online yesterday. I need to understand it a little bit, but the drive for some of our advanced business users is significant. They know what's coming. They're driving us to absorb these products or to learn about these products at a very rapid rate, and this was one of them. We had 2 or 3 business units coming to us within weeks after Project Online was announced in Office 365, saying, I want it now. I'm going to run my whole project portfolio application on Project Online. Oh, that's nice. How do we do that? We need training, we need admins, we need to be able to consume that business requirement. And our ability to react to that is something that we have to probably get better at, or not offer the service as soon as it comes out until we can get mature, we can mature those skills. It was first implemented in June of 2014. We implemented portfolio and project management solution for 2 divisions, our Americas sales team and our pro business as well. We partner with a company. So this is one thing I recommend doing, and it worked out very well for us. All we really had to do to implement Project Online was to spin up a PWA, an enabled site collection, and give users access to it. We brought in a company called Vibrant Fusion that laid down their project and portfolio solution on top of that, trained the users, and we had very little to do with it. So it was very quick. The businesses paid for it. They're leveraging Office 365 very quickly, and we partnered with a trusted company from Microsoft to help us get through that. We could not have gained that expertise ourselves that quickly in order to meet the business needs, so find a good partner for those things. Yammer. Here comes Yammer. What do we do with that? Well, after much conversation between a team of Bose employees and our legal team to figure out how we can implement this, and going back and forth, it was rolled out in June of 2014. Right now we have 3,000 members actively engaged, with 20% growth over the previous month. Last count, there's 200 active Yammer groups. Replaced GroupMe to share photos, videos, and best practices by our RGG, our retail sales teams. And people share nice to know news about the corporate news, recognition, events, announcements. We use it to connect Bose employees to groups and colleagues. We use it for self-service help for our different Office 365 applications. We have a very active SharePoint Yammer group where folks ask questions, our admins chime in, other power users chime in. It's very, very powerful. I suggest you use that as well. The list goes on. Azure. Azure, not really part of the Office 365 world, but we had a need for it. We have several on-prem applications running in Access or .NET or old applications for very specific business purposes. And what we've been trying to do is move those workloads to Azure as a back-end database. Front-end it with SharePoint Online using business connectivity services. And leverage Power BI to do reporting for that application. We're currently developing an application. I was asked in January to develop an application where Bose employees could buy Bose products like you see here, at the employee discounted price. Today we have to call a phone number, and we have to talk to people, we have to give them our credit card, we have to go through a relatively long process to purchase products. So I was asked to light up an application to allow that to happen within Bose. I was given about 3 months to do it. No headcount, no budget. So what do? I found a bunch of what we call rotators. And rotators at Bose and CIS are new college hires that rotate through various disciplines within CIS. I found 4 of them who just started with Bose, so they couldn't say no, and they couldn't, they didn't know how to say no. It was yes to everything. So I gave them the challenge. I said, I need a web-based application running in the cloud, in Azure, connecting to SAP, which will allow employees to purchase Bose products. I locked them in the room for a couple days, gave them some pizza and some Cokes, and they spun up an Azure SQL database, spun up a web server, went into the Azure Marketplace, and selected something called Mop Commerce, which is an open source e-commerce engine running in Azure. They had that running in about a week. They customized it, and they did this because no one told them they couldn't. And they continued driving and continued driving. And then we had to hook it up to SAP to get product and price information out of our SAP system and get tax information out of our SAP system as well. That's where they kind of hit the wall. They were good working in Azure in their little bubble, but when you hit SAP and try to reach into SAP real time and get data, they needed some help. So Microsoft and SAP have been collaborating for the last couple of years on a standard called OData to allow Microsoft endpoints to consume SAP data. So the problem here was I needed to be in Azure, running in a web app. I needed access to both product and price information out of my ECC system. And I needed real-time access to tax information so that when the user put in the ship to, the zip code of the ship to where the product was going, we could reach into SAP and get the tax information, which would account for tax holidays and changes. That will all take place in SAP. So I had a couple developers who work on my team and the integration team reach into SAP, write some ABAP and BAPI, expose some OData services to get the product and price information and the tax and tax jurisdiction information, and expose them using our existing NetWeaver Gateway product, and then furthermore with our SAP mobile platform to expose these services to be consumed by endpoints, either in the cloud or on mobile devices. So within a couple weeks, the guys locked in the room were consuming these OData services, getting access to product and price information, getting access to tax information. And we also allowed them to call a routine that we have that tokenizes credit cards. So in the cloud, we store just the token and not your credit card and pass that into our SAP system. This really isn't part of Office 365 per se, but from within Office 365, if you open the window and you look out, you see Azure. It's sitting there waiting to be used. And we decided to use that as our platform to deliver this service. So I think we're going to light this up on July 1st. It's in user test right now. And I was with the kids and the rotators in the conference room, and I'm saying, this thing's running a little slow. Is there anything you can do about that? And within seconds, they said, sure. They just added memory, added core to it in Azure, and the thing's running like lightning fast. So, like any other company, we run these sales for employee products, and people wait till the last day of the sale where they buy everything. So we'll be able to spin up extra resources in Azure to take care of that and monitor it with the Azure application. But again, we leveraged the Active Directory connection to secure this and give it access. Office video. Now, this is all from memory, because I have a guy sitting out there who did all the work, and he sat with me in my office for about an hour and told me everything that he did. So I'm going to repeat what he told me, and I hope I get it right. I didn't do this work. Okay? We began testing Office 365 video with the first release in November of 2014. We worked very closely with the engineering organization to work out some bugs, give them feedback. From what I understand, they were pretty receptive to that feedback and made some of the changes that we requested. Pilot kicked off in March, all pretty new stuff. And we had a new hire onboarding channel where our new hires can go in and learn about new processes and procedures. And a departmental communication channel where individual departments could communicate different processes, procedures, what's happening within their department. We're currently using Office Mix and Camtasia for video recording. From what I've been told, it works well as a platform to host corporate video. We have a use case that requires our employees to upload their own videos. And the team that did the analysis feels that the product needs a little bit additional work to make that happen. And we're struggling to define and implement governance procedures to satisfy corporate legal concerns with that. You can do it. How we do it, how people, we could do it a few different ways. We could say, we'll trust our employees to only upload appropriate content. And the legal team probably won't buy that. Maybe put in some workflow, but then we feel like we're a gatekeeper and we lose the creativity. Probably don't want to do that as well. So there needs to be some balance between how we do ad hoc videos and how we publish things very, very quickly without having a heavyweight process to control it. And I think we've given that feedback to Microsoft, and we're hoping they're going to help us out there. Gerald, I hope that was a good synopsis of your hard work, so thank you for that. Delve. Delve came onto the scene. It rolled out in March. So most people didn't even know it existed because they had to go to the waffle and hit the waffle, and then it showed Delve. And when they clicked on Delve, a few different things happened. Some people said, that's really cool. Interesting. Don't know why I would use it, but it's really cool. Other people said, there's a lot of information being surfaced by Delve that I shouldn't be seeing because it was not properly protected in their SharePoint sites. So it shined, although the information was there, it shined a light on that information. So be very careful when you do this. I believe Delve, it's been out for a month. We haven't really articulated the business case for it yet. I don't think there is a great business case for it until we fully adopt OneDrive for Business, and all your documents that you're working on are stored in OneDrive for Business, which will allow them to be surfaced in Delve. I think we'll get better traction. But again, that was something that came. We heard about it. We saw it early in first release. We knew it was coming. Most of our folks and most of the employees really don't know how to make use of it right now because they're not all in. They have to make that OneDrive migration to have it be very useful to them. So we'll wait and see on that. And again, will become more viable with an increased adoption for OneDrive for Business, and we're trying to push that as hard as we can. Requires communication and marketing are required to convey value. We have to come up with some use cases. We have to show our folks why and when they should use this, how it will help them be more productive. Okay, the story goes on. Skype for Business. I didn't even know that was coming per se because I had my head down doing other things, and all of a sudden I got a push notification from my friends at CIS, and all of a sudden my link just turned into Skype for Business. So we've rolled that out to our CIS employees, a couple hundred of them. I didn't see any problems with it in terms of its operating with Link and doing what it should do. We'll see when it goes out to our business users, and now they're going to say, "Where's Link? I always got used to Link. I don't know where Link is." Well, it's Skype, and you have to use it a little bit differently. So more communication. Roll it out to IT employees. Coexists well with Link, in my estimation. We're going to have it rolled out to the whole corporation, hopefully by June. And stay tuned for where we're going to go with this. I think the jury's still out. I think it's going to cause a little bit of disruption, but I think our users are getting used to it. They're used to us messing with their environment. And when will the Windows Phone app be available? That's my question. I'm one of the few Windows Phone users, and I went to get my Skype for Business Windows Phone app, and it doesn't exist. I have to use Link 2010 phone app. So that's a question for Microsoft if you're in the room. All right, we're getting there. It's been a long list. MDM for Office. Came onto our service last week. Don't know a lot about it. Too soon to comment. Stay in tuned. Pun on words. Questions? Are there any questions? And I may solicit help from, you may want to come up to the microphone and so everybody can hear and line up. I may solicit the help from my INO colleagues who've come to support me, but I'll do my best to answer.
Hi. We've gone pretty much through the whole roadmap like you showed, with one exception. We're coming from a nodes environment. And we have some other challenges which you haven't mentioned so far. I was wondering whether you have operations in Asia or Europe. How's the performance coming up on those locations? We do have operations in Asia and Europe.
As far as I know, they're all pretty productive. I'm doing Link meetings with those folks all the time. They're, I think the bandwidth has been maybe problematic. Maybe. Can you stand up and so everyone can hear you?
So SharePoint sites, no problems with latency whatsoever from Asia, for example?
I have not. Yeah, we haven't seen any latency in the SharePoint sites at all.
Thank you.
Yes? Governance strategies for the SharePoint space are communicated through our network of power users. Our power users are embedded in the business. We run these monthly 4-hour SharePoint power user training sessions where we go over governance, and we continue to do that every single month. We refresh the content, and we continue to push that out, and we rely on these power users in the business to help enforce our governance within the corporation.
Do you know what they do? Like
Some have meetings, and some are very active in Yammer, and some are just known as the resource within the organization that people can come to ask questions about SharePoint, implementing SharePoint Online, implementing the features.
Hey there. Can you elaborate a little bit on when you changed over from a traditional IT help desk, like, oh, you lost your email, we can help you get it back? What was the experience like for your IT teams? Did you spend less time or more? What was the end user experience like? Oh God, why can't?
So we didn't change that for the end user. We still have our own help desk call-in number, staffed 24 hours a day to solve problems. If they can't solve the problem, then we escalate to Microsoft. So our users aren't contacting Microsoft directly, but they're still talking to the same folks. They're still getting that same level of service.
Good. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Yes.
You mentioned that you thought that end user training was inadequate.
Yes.
What did you do differently? What did you provide, and what would you do differently?
I think that I would like to make it mandatory. I'd like to make it mandatory for everybody coming into the company to go through some kind of Office 365 training on how to be productive in this environment. We give them an account, we say, here it is, and we let them go. So I'd like to see that part of it. And part of the stuff that we're doing with Office Video hopefully will help. So if we can get people on the front end to get conversant in the service and understand what it's all about, then that will carry through and help us be more educated going forward.
Do you run multiple tenants or one set just for first release and your production?
2 tenants, a first release and a production.
And do you have a full copy of your AD in the first release tenant? I guess probably
Excuse
not.
me?
You're not syncing your AD to that first release tenant? Is that just cloud accounts or something like that?
They're cloud account.
You are? To both of them? To both your tenants? Just the one, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I was so curious. All right, thanks.
Yes.
Are there any parts of Office 365 that you have issues or challenges collecting data for legal?
We haven't run into any yet. Not that we've been tasked with that. Our legal team is aware of the new e-discovery capabilities in Office 365. And we're doing work with them right now to get them accustomed to actually being able to collect their own data using the e-discovery features within Office 365, with our help and oversight, of course. That's classified. I can't comment on what we pay. I don't even get involved in that, so I think it's pretty publicly available. You can go out there and see what it is.
Hello, first of all, I would like to close.
Thank you.
Second one for Yammer, do you have a strict overlap, or it's like open to everyone, common sense, or?
Open to everyone. I think we really are part of our culture and our essence and values at Bose, as Bose employees. We trust our employees to do the right thing. And I think by and large, by extending that trust, we get the right behavior back. So we don't have a lot of governance in Yammer. We have folks that are admins that are kind of overseeing it, but I don't think we've seen any abuse to date.
My question is about custom code. When you move to SharePoint from on-premise to SharePoint Online, how much of custom code do you have on-premise?
We had very little custom code. We had kind of eliminated, and because we have the support model that we have where our power users in the business are developing most of the SharePoint sites and applications, we really recommend that they don't get involved in custom code. We do have some where we've gone to outside third parties, which we did have to migrate. It runs our whole intranet site. But by and large, 99% of our sites did not have, it had mostly standard out-of-the-box features, which migrated pretty well.
Okay. My second question is about multi-factor authentication. So are you relying on the two-factor authentication from Office 365, which is they send the code on, they call your phone number and then you press pound or something, or is there a way we could use a code to the email?
We use a service for that. So we use a cloud-based service for accessing, for providing multi-factor authentication to all of our cloud-based assets, not only Office 365.
Okay, great. Thank you.
When you started this whole process, what was your reason, your ROI? Was it IT savings, or was it your employees weren't productive?
I think it was productivity mostly.
So have you known any IT savings, like you've been saving on your IT side for costs, or is it a push?
I don't know if I'd say it was a push. I know we did the upfront analysis and we took a look at the overall cost, 3 to 5 year cost, and I think that it came in pretty close. So it really came down to going there, the benefits that this would give us, and it enabled us to free up a lot of resources who are working on this on-prem solution to do more value-add things for our business. So it helped on the resource side as well.
So it was a saving. Well, you invested those people other places.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
How did you dealt with the IT security that when you were moving from on-premise to the cloud, and if there was some like confidential data or restricted data on SharePoint, how did you dealt with those things?
Well, for data that was, we do have some on-prem solutions for highly confidential data, which still remain, that we're not moving stuff to those workloads or that content to the cloud. But we looked at it very, very closely, and we really felt that the security and the authentication and authorization with two-factor authentication and proper authorization within SharePoint, and the security measures that Microsoft takes to protect the content were sufficient for us to move most of our content that was in our SharePoint on-prem solution into the cloud.
Thank you.
So we were thinking about going hybrid, but we decided to scrap that, implement multi-factor authentication, and just go all to the cloud.
Thank you.
How do you feel about your employee headcount through this whole process? Up, down, the IT headcount?
Could you say that again?
So through this whole process, do you think you had to get more IT employees or less, or did it stay about the same? It's a big shift in having like a Exchange administrator, having a SharePoint administrator, and then now you have Microsoft managing most of that. So whether you keep your Exchange administrator or redeploy them?
I think by and large, most of the resources were wearing multiple hats, and we did retain most of the folks. There were a couple in the SharePoint space where we had to have DBAs and very technical people supporting our SharePoint on-prem environment that we no longer needed. That was a reduction that I'm aware of. But in the Exchange area, I think most of the folks that were working on that are now working on higher value, cloud-based things, other initiatives. So certainly the skills transferred quite nicely.
Thanks.
Anything you miss from having on-prem that you don't have in the cloud?
I don't miss any of it. Okay. Not at all. Not the upgrades. Not the none of it. So I think we're pretty happy to be there. So
no features that were on-prem or easier to integrate with that were on-prem that are now hard to do in the cloud or anything like that?
Really, not that I'm aware of. There may be one or two use cases, but certainly the benefits that we reaped from implementing the Office 365 far outweigh the pain and suffering that we would have had by continually upgrade our on-prem and refresh hardware and maintain all that infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
Great presentation. Question for you on Skype for Business from Link 2013. How are you controlling the rollout? It just seems like for our users, it's just being pushed out without us being able to throttle it. It seems like you're IT first and then everybody else. How are you handling that?
Guys, is the SMS we're pushing that out with, or?
Yeah, basically policy-based versions, set policy, which Yeah, I guess a couple of questions. One is that, are you monitoring end user experience across your locations for Office 365 using some tools?
We actually had been working, I think last year we had Microsoft in, their user experience group come in and do a study on how our business users use Office 365. So they were very interested in doing that. So they came in for about a week and collected data about the real life use cases that are how our business uses the environment, and took that back to Redmond with them, and hopefully we'll incorporate that into some of their products in terms of how they can improve that user experience.
Okay, perfect. Just second related question is kind of, are you also leveraging other SaaS applications from other vendors?
Excuse me?
Are you leveraging other SaaS applications as well from other vendors?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Many others.
Any examples you can allude to?
Workday is one of them. We're using some SAP Cloud for Customer. We're using, there's a whole list of them that we use for, that we have integrated with today.
Thank you very much.
Oh.
During your Office upgrade, I guess you had some Excel macros or Access databases that you had to upgrade. How did you guys tackle that?
I think we probably worked one off with them. I don't know if we ran into that much. Most of our reporting is done in the SAP space, so it was not done in the Windows space at all. We have a very large SAP BI, BW, and HANA instance for our major corporate reporting. I think most of that database access still remained on-prem.
And then did you have to do anything with your internet pipes or anything to increase that bandwidth?
Yeah, our network guys were on top of that, doing monitoring, doing all sorts of tests to make sure that the internet was capable. I think we had to beef up some of the services in our remote locations to handle the increased load.
Thanks.
Actually, follow up with that line of question. What is your slowest link and what is your biggest link?
Our slowest is from networking point of view?
Yeah, from networking point of view.
Slowest link, I've heard some grumblings about speed in Australia, but other than that, there has not been reported any dissatisfaction in our global locations about using the service primarily.
Probably want to be about 6 meg on a pipe, though. It's small.
So on the small side is 6 megs, but for how many users for that 6 megs?
Less than 50, maybe.
Okay.
Question. So Microsoft has a 99.99% uptime for Office 365 and all the apps. So you as the early adopter, have you faced any downtime, or how quickly Microsoft was able to resolve it?
I think that we had one significant downtime in the past 3 years where Microsoft actually made good on their financially backed SLA. And I think the rest of it, I can only remember one significant time. There might have been two, but once I think we may have shot ourselves in the foot on it. But there was only one time where it was Microsoft was clearly identified as the result of our outage, and they pretty quickly fixed it and backed it up with their financial settlement.
So for you as the early adopter, how does that impact your business, considering you need to have a lot of information to sell your product all the time? So does that have a lot of impact on your business?
I don't think it's had a lot of impact on our business in terms of revenue. I don't see any correlation between the amount of product that we sell to this effort. This was more related to employee productivity.
All right. Yep, thank you.
Welcome. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate the time.